All right. Oh, we actually have the mayor waiting to come in. So it's 5 o'clock now. I'm going to open up the meeting and let everyone in. Looks like just the mayor currently, but we're going live. All right, everyone, I will read the opening language and we can take a roll call after that to open the meeting. Pursuant to Mayor LaChapelle's May 19th, 2021 mayoral authorization in accordance with Massachusetts 940 CMR 29.10, this meeting of the Easthampton Board of Public Works will be conducted via remote participation. Michelle, could we get a roll call?
Sure. Thomas Malsbury.
Present.
David Fagnan.
Present.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to open the Board of Public Works meeting for June 2nd at 5:01 p.m. via remote participation.
Thomas Malsbury. Oh, wait a minute. Dave, you have to second that first.
Oh, I second. Sorry.
No problem.
Thomas Malsbury.
Yes.
David Fagnan.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. Meeting's open.
All right, item number 1 on our agenda is public speak. I do not see anyone from the public joining us except John with Honeywell for later in the meeting, and the mayor is also present. Mayor, if you'd like to speak at all for any reason not on the agenda, you can do so as well.
Yeah, I would just some quick comments. Thank you for doing all the work you have over the last year and the ups and the downs and the alls around. I wish I could tell you both with a straight face, it's going to calm down now. It's not, and especially for your board. So I'll just put that out. You should know too, your director, Greg, has really taken the ball and is just running with it. Really great. The level of collaboration among departments is an all-time high. And Greg has really brought his team forward. A great example of that is what we're bringing to you for comment tonight, which is, I'm going to just mess up all of the acronyms, but basically it's an energy efficiency and healthy building program that the state promotes. We put up to bid, and it looks at where our air quality is great, where it's not. It was so appropriate for COVID, but also looks at long-term energy savings and leveraging those savings to then buy into more energy efficient planning and equipment. Long process that Honeywell got the bid, has been working with Greg and a lot of people across all departments, and would like to present kind of the overview of what this program will look like. I will preface his actually side deck. So we're looking for technical questions and insights. As far as paying for it, one will not affect sewer water rates in any way. The paying comes from different sources. And as far as the sources, we've not received our ARPA money. We are waiting for some other grant money and cannabis money to figure out. But I wanted to get this plan. There's a lot of detail into the public before this board, giving building ops, wastewater, sewer, and all of that. So that was the only that was my preface for the rest of the agenda.
Wonderful. If you don't mind, since we do have you here this evening,
yeah.
Is there any status on appointment or contenders for the open seat on the board? Have you entertained any applications for that?
We had one application and they withdrew because of a change in work.
Okay.
And
I just know the board has a lot on the docket, and I'd like to tackle that with a full board if possible, which I know you know.
Yes, I'm on
and
it.
Also with a 2-member board now, if ever
right.
An item came up before the board that I felt I needed to recuse myself from, or Greg or David needed to recuse himself from, we're at a standstill for
Yep.
that topic. So
I'm on it.
Understood. Just wanted to know.
No, I mean, I'm not. No, I forgot about all of. Yes. No, I understand. As I say, it's going to be busy and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood. All right, if anything else, I'm happy to move on to item number 3, approval of the May 5th, 2021 meeting minutes. Did you get a chance to review those, Dave?
I did, yes.
Any issues with them as received?
No, they look fine to me.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the May 5th, 2021 meeting minutes.
And I will second that.
Thomas Mulsbury,
Yes.
David Fagnan,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right, and then on to the meat of this evening's meeting. Item number 4, Easthampton Energy Project with Honeywell giving a presentation.
Thank you, Thomas. Let me share my screen. We have, oh, the host is disabled
Yeah,
screen sharing.
Let me. Yeah, that's just by default.
Greg told me you'd probably be hazing me, so I was expecting this.
Let's see, how do we security? Hello. All right, you should be able to now.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Just a little precaution in these days of public meetings. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is that coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent, great. So just as a quick introduction, I am John Bonavis, so I've had the pleasure of working with the Easthampton team on this energy savings performance contract program. I'm the program lead from a Honeywell perspective, and it's been great to spend really the last over probably 6 months or so engaged with the team in building this out, following the DOER process. So just wanted to kind of table set that, and from an agenda standpoint, and I'll definitely keep it brief and open up for any questions. And as the mayor mentioned, anything technical or program specific, by all means, just please, we can go over anything. But want to touch upon the actual DOER process quickly, and then get into the steps that Easthampton's taken thus far, and then follow that up with the project overview and touch upon how we're working together, what the process looks like, and really step by step, high level, and then discuss where we are right now from a highlight perspective of what the project looks like today. All right, then we'll take questions. But by all means, feel free to interject anytime. You don't have to wait until I'm finished to ask questions. Okay.
Great.
Thank you. So as the mayor mentioned, Easthampton's following the Massachusetts tried and true process, following the Department of Energy Resources, in this case RFQ, which is under Mass General Law, Chapter 25A, subsection 11I, which is the actual RFQ component of that. And in just following process and compliance, the city issued notification back in September, actually. So this process began then with going through each step by step, which is listed there, ultimately having other energy service companies or ESCOs like Honeywell and our competitors all show up for the pre-bid meetings, and Greg, as well as Michael Owens on the procurement side, were there. Michael actually issued the RFQ through DOER. They provided the overview. We went to every ESCO, went through every building that's listed on here to have equal time. And it was challenging because during COVID, we actually had to truly mask up and social distance. And the team did a great job of walking us through all those and, keeping us kind of spread out and being deliberate in the time and the safety, therein. So it was a really good event, from that perspective as well. And ultimately, the city received all responses back, conducted interviews for finalists, and I was very excited that they selected Honeywell to work with in this process. So things starting in September, selecting us in actually January, and then from that point, we start to get into how we unravel the project step by step and bring it forward. In being very deliberate in what the city's focused on, these are the 6 buildings that are in the scope. So said differently, the only school involved is the high school, and it's to a lesser degree because, as we all know, that the high school being constructed 2012, 2013, there's not a lot of what we would typically do, although there are items that we would do to knock out, preventative maintenance so that they don't become deferred maintenance and issues that, unfortunately could be seen in districts where schools aren't serviced, and you start to see things have a lot of wear and tear over time. And with budget constraints, they have situations that are challenging. So this excludes all the elementary schools as well as the middle school, and also excludes the new K-8, which is being constructed. So every week on Thursdays, we have a team meeting. So Greg and Mike Owens, as well as the mayor, depending on schedule, and then we'll have others join as well. We've had Jen Gallant on the Treasury side, join in. But ultimately, we walk through all the status updates. We ask our questions or ask for deliverables from the team. So it's very interactive, as well as discussing what we're doing on site. And as we kind of went through the beginning challenges of any project, of collecting all the data from a utility standpoint, understanding what the city's already engaged in from an energy perspective, as well as sitting down and just going through really all the goals and what we call kind of wish list items of the city to make sure that, we're looking comprehensively, but we're focused on things that are really important. And that's what ends up being a customized project that has a great return. So the way the DOER process unfolds in these 3 steps in the middle is going through a preliminary audit analysis, which we finished back in February. And that's basically looking from an engineering perspective, crunching numbers, and coming up what we think the energy conservations would make sense to perform and what the potential savings would be. And from that point, it gets into a much more diligent and detailed, time-consuming process that is the second bullet of the draft technical audit report, or also called the DTAR, which we finished last month, which ultimately then is like looking deeply into energy savings opportunities around the guidance of what the PAA established and getting the team's standpoint. So this would be us discussing with Greg and Mike Owens and the mayor what our findings were, making sure that directionally this is on par with what everybody was expecting, or these are the type of upgrades and improvements that you'd like to see. And right now we're in the process of that last item called the optimized investment grade audit, of what that will ultimately become what the project scope is, which means looking at all the buildings, all the potential measures, and customizing them, or deciding upon the ones that you truly want to see in the project. And the last section there just really informs of what we're looking at. So as the mayor mentioned, there's a few different ways to approach, and a lot of it's to do with energy savings. But in all these type of projects, we look also at capital renewal or infrastructure upgrades. So there could be items that are really challenging to fund. Could be window replacements, or even new roofs for buildings, boilers and mechanical equipment that has typically not the best performance from an economic perspective, but things that are really critical. So we'll look to come to put kind of a blended offering together of items that have the ability to carry some of those capital pieces as well, so that it becomes a much better economic component for the city. And all the other items there, as you see, are part of what makes the project go forward. And also the last bullet focusing on sustainability and having a mind, which I know the mayor and the city does, about reducing carbon emissions, as well as looking into solar production. And that's part of what we have here in the project as well. I'll stop there for a moment for questions. I know I kind of rambled through a lot. Is there anything that comes to mind there?
No, I'm fine.
No,
Okay.
That seems like a technical approach to it. So yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And to get to really the last item I wanted to discuss is where we are right now from a project highlight point of view. And as I mentioned, the 6 buildings are what we're discussing. There's 17 different types of energy conservation measures that right now are being factored into what becomes the project. And as I mentioned, solar is something that's very important to the city. And within this project right now, there would be solar canopies at both the public safety building as well as the municipal building at 50 Payson. and then some ground mount solar on the actual land itself at the wastewater plant. Nothing on the rooftops there, but just the land itself. And then a potential smaller solar array at City Hall as well. The full scope of the project, as estimated today, is approximately $6.9 million. And how that gets funded is by a handful of different sources, which I've listed out here. So principally, these type of projects are either bonded or it could be a lease purchase agreement, depending upon which way the city or the town would like to go. And then within what we do, there's negotiations with the utility company to bring rebates to bear based upon the energy savings and thermal savings from gas perspective as well. That goes right to the project, right to the city, as well as then the energy savings within the project. And there's a small piece of operational savings. It's pretty nominal, but there's it's enough to factor in. And then really in the world today where we are, there's a lot of different buckets of stimulus funds, which which have to be understood, unraveled, and then planned to be potentially incorporated as well. So, and then the last piece is the typical budgetary capital pieces of how can you plan for things on the long term so that you don't have the emergency situations of something fails like a boiler before heating season, and now all of a sudden it's reactive mode and it's a challenge. So all these pieces come into it to fund. And one thing that's really important to call out is the last bullet point here, that as far as the water enterprise accounts are concerned, there's no impact from this project. So nothing that we're proposing at all in this case would be subjected to potentially increase any rates. So just wanted to make sure that was clear in what we were bringing forward. And that is really what I wanted to run through. So be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
I guess, one question that popped in my head while you were running through, you said there was going to be no roof mounted at the water plant, that it was going to be a ground array instead?
That's correct.
What was is there aren't the state smart rebates calculated higher for roof mount rather than grid? Aren't they trying to discourage ground use?
I wouldn't say discouraged. I think you're right about the rates. There's still incentives for them as well. Okay. In this case, it's a combination though of, again, think of it kind of as a bundled approach. What rooftops make the most sense based upon roof structure and integrity, and then the fact that there is clear land space to utilize wastewater is really the driver for that. Okay. To your point, there would be some solar on City Hall as well. And then, as I mentioned, the canopies, the canopies at both public safety as well as City Hall are nice items that the city, I think, really wants to see, particularly a public safety, which could help from having the vehicles parked beneath and whatnot as well, and be some kind of a coverage. But and within that too, I didn't mention there'd be two electric vehicle charging stations, one located at public safety and one located at municipal building at 50 Payson.
Okay. One other question about the solar canopies in the parking lot. Is there any, obviously we're not very far into design, but is there any catchment plan for runoff melt from those? I know one facility I've worked at had a large icing problem in the parking lot from freeze-thaw cycles with snow or runoff melting off the arrays and creating ice patches at the leading edge of the canopies. So, it's just another safety issue I want to make sure is addressed as that rolls out.
No, it's a good point. And as we get more into the actual design of that, we will talk through that with the team. Okay. And there's different options of what you're discussing, from a water drainage to a kind of the angle system of how the snow might basically slide to one side and melt. But yes, those are things for us to consider and finalize the scope on together.
Yep. But otherwise, obviously, very supportive of everything else.
Thank you, Thomas.
If I could just jump in real quick, and John, I know that we're kind of down the rabbit hole of the world of solar, but could you quickly mention the work that you guys have done for us around the existing solar that we have, and how that figures into this overall look?
Yeah, sure. So just want to be clear that so what the mayor's asking is around the Oliver landfill PPA that the city contracted back in 2010 with Borrego, and that, based upon the contract, is at about the 10-year point where the city has a decision to make between potentially purchasing the system, renegotiating a longer term, or there's always a clause to actually have it removed, which doesn't seem like that's in anyone's best interest. But in the long and the short of it is Honeywell's gotten involved, and we've done a bit of diligence to try to help the city from an advisory perspective of what direction they may want to go in. There's still conversations to be had, and just in transparency, because we're not first party to the agreement, Borrego has not been as probably as quick to share information, and rightfully so. And I know the mayor provided consent for them to do so. So we're trying to collect all that we can, but ultimately, based upon the system and upon the ability to own that system at it looks like an attractive buyout, the city then would be able to receive the rec revenue from rec sales of the solar production there. And it's too early right now to really discuss any numbers from a firm perspective, and from a conversational standpoint, there's some work to be done in diligence, but that seems where it could be a very positive cash flowing project for the city to undertake, and also then maintain all that solar as ownership as part of just adding more solar, so to speak, to the city. So there's more to be discussed there, and that is definitely not part of this project, so to speak, right? So to the extent Honeywell, if we were involved in that solar component, I would call that, a discrete secondary phase, so to speak, or something that is not tied to this per se. But if you look at things in aggregate from that solar project and just how potentially it has the ability to be a very attractive cash flowing project for the city, it really just from a full, comprehensive energy play, it helps to buoy the whole energy outlook of the city.
I guess from that point of view, would us becoming a solar producer, would that fall under the jurisdiction of the DPW, or would that play into the formation of the MLP we've voted to create? Would that be another avenue for that to exercise itself? If we
That's a great question,
producer.
Tom, and one we're looking at. I don't know if John or Greg have some. It does bring up a whole. There are a couple of different paths to do that. But
it's fortunate we've created the MLP. That gives us a whole nother option to explore there, or voted to be able to create the MLP, I should say.
Yes, I agree. And right now too, with the federal money and hopefully an infrastructure project coming our way, there are some advantages to using that MLP that the voters have already approved. And that non-binding referendum meets the criteria to go forward. So my office, we're having a separate conversation around MLP and broadband. But this kind of comes into that umbrella as well, as we, as I put forward a way to pay for this.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting development.
Greg, do you have anything to add, or you want to add, or?
Well, the gist of it from my perspective is this gives us an excellent opportunity to make some major upgrades in these buildings. The system here at 50 Payson is antiquated, difficult to control. Rooms get hot, rooms get cold, and that's going to get addressed in this. And we're seeing some systems next door at the public safety complex that are hitting 20, 25 years old and are starting to we're starting to need to make some larger investments there, and this is going to help us do that. So that's where I think we really benefit by being able to make these upgrades.
I guess I just need to ask, of the estimated 6.9 million cost of this, what are we expecting, for the city to have to outlay of that, or is it all hopefully covered under grants and incentive programs and other public funds, or? Do we have
Yeah,
a
so, yeah, a part of them, so one, as we get closer to getting that IGA finalized, a part of the consideration of how will be what our actual energy savings is. So not
Mhm.
everything in this project that is before you is instant energy savings. Some communities just do, recoup the savings and then use that to pay down some kind of a debt interest, a debt note. So that could be a part of it. ARPA money. There are a couple of things that could be appropriate for cannabis. So then we have free cash in capital reserve, and there are projects on or within this survey that were on our capital improvement plan and are in our stormwater management. So
Yep, yeah, understood.
yeah, so we're, I guess there's an a la carte menu right now of where the money might come. But public and again, looking to minimize no impact on water or sewer and minimize taxpayer burden and starting to go after the grants.
Understood.
And I guess lastly, from a timing point of view, we're working, as the Mayor mentioned, to get to what we call the optimized IGA through the month of June and really be at what we would consider to be the final project per se. And at that point, as things, potentially went forward, this would be something where construction likely could begin sometime as early as end of August, September, probably.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Anything else, I'm happy to answer.
Well, I think that's a good summary of what you guys have accomplished to date, and it's very impressive. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I will say goodbye. Greg, thanks as always. Talk to you
thanks, John.
tomorrow.
Sure,
Thank you, Mayor, as well.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Okay, take care now.
Great.
All right. If there's any more discussion on that? If not, I can move on to the next item on our agenda.
Nope, I'm fine.
All right, item number 5, I just put on just review of current water use restrictions and triggering conditions. Just wanted to, I know Greg and I discussed this a little offline when that was put in place, but we did get some inquiries from the public as to what triggered it, why it happened so early. And, there's the general concern of, we pump from an aquifer. Why does the level in the Connecticut River affect us? We don't draw from that. So if you could just give a quick summary, Greg, of what triggered this and what triggered it in the past and
absolutely.
How the city is bound to those permit requirements.
So it basically comes down to the development and addition of the Brook Street well back in 2005. The city, with the development of that new source, the city was, that new source falls under the purview of the Water Management Act and is a permitted source because of the date that it was put in service. We, it's kind of hard to explain. It gets pretty complicated, but we also have a Water Management Act registration that we operated off prior to 2005 and continue to operate off of. But because we have one permitted source, we fall under the Water Management Act and need to implement water use restrictions based on the conditions of that our Water Management Act permit for the Brook Street well. So that's why, like you see Springfield, you don't really see them put in water use restrictions because they only operate off of a registered source and not a permitted source. Northampton, you've seen them put in restrictions, for maybe the last 10 years or so because they operate off of permitted sources and not registered sources. So that's sort of the regulation aspect behind it. And we have the Water Management Act permit. We have to comply by the language in it, and that language says that we have to put in a water use restriction from the months of May through September based on stream flow in the Connecticut River, or if there's a drought advisory, a level 1 drought advisory or higher in effect by this State Drought Management Task Force. In this case, on May 1st, there was a drought advisory in place. I knew that the Drought Task Force was planning to meet May 5th or 6th, and was thinking there was a good chance they may lift it because we had so much rain at the end of April. So we opted to wait a few days to see what the outcome of that meeting was before we put our restriction in. And they did lift drought advisories in portions of the state, but not the Connecticut River Valley. They left the level 1 restriction in place for the Connecticut River Valley, which means we in turn have to put in a water use restriction for users of the Easthampton public water system. So had they lifted it, we would have had to put a restriction in last week because the Connecticut River did in fact get down below the trigger for 3 consecutive days. So the trigger in May through June 30th, from May 1st through June 30th, is 7,742 cubic feet per second, which is a calculation of the amount of discharge over square miles of river surface. And from July 1st to September 30th, that value drops to 3,580 cubic feet per second. And these are to support habitat for fish growth, spawning, and the spring bio period. So that is, the long and short of why we have to do it. So.
Nope, I understood. I just sort of, I don't know if that's ever really been covered in detail. I know in the press releases that's sort of summarized, but I just sort of wanted to get it on record for anybody who had questions as to what and how they go into effect, and that they're not arbitrary based just on our local city environment. So
I mean, we do have an option to put in a calendar-based restriction that would just go in every May 1st and then lift September 30th if there's not a drought advisory in place. But I don't like having to put the restrictions in if we can avoid it. We certainly want to, but we, as licensed operators of the public water system, we have to follow the conditions of our permits and things that are in place. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the explanation. Dave, any questions on that?
Yes. Greg, what are the actual water use restrictions, if somebody asks?
So let's see, I got it all right here. They, okay, non-essential outdoor water uses that are subject to mandatory restrictions include irrigation of lawns via sprinklers or automatic irrigation systems, washing of vehicles except in a commercial car wash or as necessary for operator safety, and washing of exterior building surfaces, parking lots, driveways, or sidewalks except as necessary to apply surface treatment such as paint, preservative, stucco, pavement, or cement. The following uses may be allowed when mandatory restrictions are in place. Irrigation to establish a new lawn and new plantings during the months of May and September. Irrigation of public parks and recreational fields by means of automatic sprinklers outside the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And irrigation of lawns, gardens, flowers, and ornamental plants by means of a handheld hose. And there's several uses that are not subject to mandatory restriction, and those are uses required for health and safety, by regulation, for the production of food and fiber, for the maintenance of livestock, or to meet the core functions of a business. For example, irrigation by a golf course as necessary to maintain tees, greens, and limited fairway watering, or irrigation by plant nurseries as necessary to maintain stock. So, I mean, the big thing is the lawn sprinklers and irrigation. The best thing people can do is just do their best to comply with what we have to have in place, and that's water your lawn 1 day per week outside the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But if you do need to water it at other times, you can use a handheld hose and water it as much as you want. It's just, that guarantees the water ends up where it needs to. And, it's all too often you go through town and see automatic sprinklers spraying the road, or, 80% of the spray coming out of it's covering someone's driveway, and it's just absolute waste. So.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions on that. We can roll right into item number 6, the director's report.
So we've been, Southampton's actually supposed to be following our water use restriction also, any users of their system, as we've been supplying the Southampton Water Department 100%. They just went back online yesterday. I think Monday, actually, they went back online to their source. But for the last 4 weeks or so, we've been supplying 100% of Southampton's water. And
really?
Yep. They had a pretty big problem with their well pump, had to pull it And it was great to have the interconnect there. We were able to meter every gallon of water we sent over there. The bill totaled just over $40,000.
I don't think I realized that the interconnect was capable of 100% supply.
Yes.
A good design.
Yeah. And our system, I mean, we had a little bit of trouble with getting our pump timings set to kind of meet their demand and not have high or low tank alarms on our side. But after the first few days, Clay and Tom, the superintendent in Southampton, were able to get that worked out, and it worked great. Once we had the timings figured out, we hardly even see the usage, about 600-700 gallons a minute going over there. So
I guess we've only ever talked about the interconnect supplying Southampton. Is there any mechanism for it to backfeed to us in the event of an emergency if we needed supplemental flow?
Could to an extent. We'd probably have to isolate a section of our system for them to supply, because our system's just so much bigger.
Yeah, no, I was just curiosity. I never sort of thought it through if there was a critical failure and we needed supplemental, if there was a reciprocal agreement with them.
We physically could get it back here, but we don't have, we don't have a agreement in place to buy water from them, nor do I think we really need one. But
no, it was, like I said, just sort of came to me. So sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. But yeah, it was just nice to have that full interconnect in there, be able to supply them, and we generated just over $40,000 in revenue for selling them water. So, which kind of brings me to my next point. We do have our Nanotuck Well, which is our, one of our major sources for the city. We pulled that back in March to have the motor and pump evaluated. We had some vibration problems with it. We had an item in capital last fall for the money to be appropriated to get that dealt with. We pulled it out. The motor's got its issues, which are relatively easy to fix, but the pump, the casing for the pump is cracked, and there's some more expense involved in that. I had to put an appropriation together of $60,000 from retained earnings to get that fixed and back online as soon as we can. So we were hoping to have that pulled and back in 3 or 4 week time frame and have it back online by end of April or first part of May. And of course, COVID has slowed everything down. We're having trouble sourcing some of the parts we need for the pump to be repaired, and it's slowing down. But I do hoping to have that back online by the first part of July. But that appropriation is moving through council as we speak.
All right. Other than that, everything's been going well with the department?
Yep.
Guys are doing well?
Yep, we did. We do have a new candidate starting, a new mechanic helper. A candidate accepted the position. He'll be starting with us on June 21st. We had that position's been open for quite a while, and it's really great to get another guy down there to help Dennis out. So we're excited to have him coming on board. We've had we have one vacancy also in the highway department that I have interviews for tomorrow afternoon. So hopefully that'll get filled also, and then we'll be pretty much full, with the exception of I think one position in the sewer department will still be open, but other than that, we'll have full staff. So. Well, we still need a foreman for the water department. That's been so long now that just used to not having one. So
that's what I was going to say. Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, or have you had any feedback that the pay scale adjustments have been helpful in filling these positions, or is it just timing?
Yeah, I think they certainly were, especially with the mechanic helper. That position was moved up a grade. So it really, I think it was a $3 or $4 an hour increase to the base rate. So that was great to be able to get that through. The water foreman side, it's really the licensing. There's not a lot of people around with licenses that, grade 3 distribution licenses.
Well, hopefully the adjustment will help us retain people. So yep. That'll be welcome as well. If that's all you have to update the board on, we can make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I will second that motion.
Smallsbury,
Yes.
David Fagnan,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All right. Our next meeting will be July 7th, 2021 in person. So
great.
Oh my goodness.
That'll be different.
Yep, so I will forward out what I know about it so far, but as of now, July 1st, city offices will be open and we'll resume standard public meetings.
I'll have to get a haircut like Thomas.
I gotta find somebody to cut my beard, right? You can't have COVID beard in person. So, all right.
Have a nice month, everybody. Okay.
We'll see you then. Have a good day.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
You too. Bye.